The cabin went silent. All eyes turned as the unmistakable sound of a slap echoed through first class. A flight attendant stood frozen, her hand still midair, while a stunned 4-year-old boy clutched his cheek, his toy plane falling to the floor. It was supposed to be a quiet red-eye flight from New York to San Francisco. SkyVista Airlines Flight SV451 had just begun boarding, and the exclusive first-class cabin was already filling with high-profile executives, artists, and the wealthy elite. Among them was little Aiden Shaw, a bright, cheerful 4-year-old boy who was already settled into seat 1A with a coloring book and his favorite plush airplane. Aiden was accompanied by his nanny, Miss Clara, a calm and composed woman in her early 30s who had worked for the Shaw family for nearly 7 years. His parents, especially his father, Elliot Shaw, the elusive and powerful CEO of SkyVista, were not on this flight. At least, not that anyone could tell. As the passengers settled in, flight attendant Laura Benton, a woman known for her strict adherence to discipline, noticed the boy making soft engine noises with his toy. While the rest of the cabin didn't seem bothered, Laura's lips tightened in disapproval. "He needs to be quiet," she whispered sharply to Clara. "This is first class." Clara gave a polite smile. "Of course, I'll make sure he keeps it down. He's just a bit excited." Laura didn't reply. She walked off, her heels clicking aggressively against the carpet. 10 minutes into the flight, Aiden giggled softly when his toy plane took off over the seat divider. It wasn't loud, barely a chirp in the hush of the cabin, but it was enough to make Laura spin around from the galley. Her patience, already thin, snapped. She marched up the aisle, her voice raised. "I told you this isn't a playground." Clara stood up. "Please, he's just—" But Laura didn't listen. In one horrifying moment, she reached down, yanked the toy out of Aiden's hand, and slapped his cheek. The sound cracked through the air. Aiden stared at her, wide-eyed. Then the tears came. His soft sobs filled the luxurious cabin like sirens. The passengers gasped. A middle-aged man across the aisle dropped his newspaper. A woman in 1C stood up in disbelief. Clara was shaking. "You just hit him. What is wrong with you?" Laura's face paled, as if she suddenly realized what she'd done. Her voice trembled, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. "He was disturbing other guests." "I didn't hear a thing," said a voice from behind. It was the man in 1B, who stood up slowly, locking eyes with her. "And you just assaulted a child." Laura backed up slightly, her fingers trembling. "I thought—" Clara picked up Aiden, holding him tight. The boy buried his face in her shoulder, hiccuping sobs. But then, the tension in the air thickened. A young woman, wearing a tailored gray suit, walked briskly from the business cabin toward first class. She stopped beside the commotion, scanning the scene with narrowed eyes. Then she whispered something into her Bluetooth earpiece. Just seconds later, a tall man in a black SkyVista operations badge entered first class. He didn't say a word. Instead, he walked directly to Aiden and knelt in front of him. "Aiden," he said softly. "It's Uncle Theo. Are you okay, little buddy?" Laura blinked, confused. Clara recognized him instantly. Theodore Marks, chief security officer at SkyVista. Laura's confusion turned to dread. "Wait, how do you know his name?" Theo stood up slowly and turned toward her. "Because this is Aiden Shaw, the son of Elliot Shaw, the CEO of this entire airline. And you just slapped him in front of 24 witnesses." Laura's face drained of color. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Another crew member quietly stepped in and took Laura by the elbow. "Please come with me." Passengers watched in silence as Laura was escorted out of the cabin, visibly shaking. Aiden, now calmer in Clara's arms, looked up and said quietly, "She took my airplane." Theo reached into his coat pocket. "Don't worry, kiddo." He handed him a brand new plush plane, one of the custom SkyVista models. "You'll always fly with us, Captain." The plane had just taken off, but for Laura, her career had just crash-landed. The plane had barely reached cruising altitude when the aftermath of the slap continued to simmer. Most of the first-class cabin sat in stunned silence, still processing what they'd witnessed. The hush was not from comfort, but tension. The energy had shifted. Clara sat with Aiden curled tightly against her chest, his toy plane pressed between them. She gently rocked him back and forth, whispering calming words. But his sobs hadn't entirely stopped. Every few minutes, he whimpered, reminding everyone that this wasn't just a bad moment. It was a violation to the back of the first-class cabin. Mr. David Lynn, a quiet investor who had once been on a SkyVista board panel, pulled out his phone and typed a message. Urgent. FA assaulted child in 1A. Kid is Elliot Shaw's son. He hit send. Somewhere on the ground. A flurry of alerts triggered. Back on the plane, Laura Benton sat in the galley, her hands trembling. Her colleague, a younger flight attendant named Marissa, walked in and lowered her voice. Laura, they know. Laura looked up, confused. What do you mean? Marissa's lips tightened. That's Elliot Shaw's son. No, it can't be. What would he be doing flying like this? Without a private jet? I don't know, Marissa replied. But someone from corporate just pinged the crew chat. They've grounded your employment access. Laura's heart stopped. Wait. They what? I'd get your story straight. Now, Laura's pride, until now keeping her together, began to crumble under the weight of sheer panic. Meanwhile, in seat 2C, an older woman named Ms. Ruth Carter, a retired federal judge, leaned over to Clara. I saw everything. If this goes to court, I'll testify. Clara nodded, tears still brimming. Thank you. Suddenly, the cabin lights flickered. A subtle ding sounded, followed by the intercom turning on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've just been informed of a personnel issue on board. Please remain in your seats. A SkyVista representative will be joining us shortly via secure communication. The cabin murmured, secure communication? Mid-flight? Minutes later, a large tablet was delivered to Clara by another crew member. It displayed a live video call from the SkyVista HQ. On screen appeared Elliot Shaw himself. His face was calm, but deadly serious. Aiden, he said softly. It's Daddy. Are you okay? The little boy looked up and gave a slight nod, his cheeks still red. Good. I need you to sit tight with Miss Clara, okay? Aiden nodded again. Then Elliot's gaze shifted, cold and cutting. Can someone please get me the flight attendant responsible? Marissa, pale as a sheet, guided Laura reluctantly into view of the camera. Elliot didn't raise his voice, but he didn't need to. Laura Benton, he said evenly. You assaulted my son. On board a SkyVista aircraft. In front of multiple witnesses. Do you have anything to say? I didn't know who he was, she stammered. So if it was another child, not my son, it would have been fine? Laura's face crumbled. No, he was disruptive, he's 4. And he was playing with a toy plane. On a plane. The call ended with Elliot giving clear instruction. Laura was to be removed from duty upon landing, and a full investigation would follow, with press briefings to come. Back in first class, a quiet sense of justice began to settle. Passengers whispered to one another, some pulling out phones to write what had just happened. Aiden had stopped crying. Clara gently stroked his hair. Mr. Lynn made another note in his phone. CEO handled it. Elegant. Ruthless. A passenger seated behind whispered, I wouldn't want to be her when this goes public. Outside the plane, the internet had already caught wind. A tweet with a blurry photo of Aiden crying and Laura standing frozen had started to go viral. Flight attendant slaps Toddler in first class. Turns out, it's the CEO's son. Karma is fast. Hashtag SkyVista scandal. The world was watching, and the flight wasn't even halfway done. When the plane's wheels touched down, hundreds of phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. CEO's son slapped on flight. SkyVista in crisis. It was just after midnight when Flight SV-451 began its descent into San Francisco International Airport. The mood in first class was somber, heavy with the weight of everything that had unfolded midair. Aiden had fallen asleep in Clara's arms, clutching his new toy plane. His cheek, though still slightly red, had faded to a pink hue. But for Clara and the entire crew, the emotional storm was far from over. As the wheels touched down, a new chaos was beginning. On the ground at the storm breaks, even before the plane reached the gate, social media exploded. Photos of the teary-eyed boy and the flight attendant's shocked face were now all over Twitter, Instagram, and news blogs. The hashtag SkyVista scandal was trending number 2 globally, just behind a celebrity breakup. News headlines were brutal. Disgrace in the skies. Toddler slapped in first class by flight attendant. SkyVista crisis. CEO's son assaulted. Public demands justice. Stock plummets overnight after viral incident involving airline ex-sex child. In under 30 minutes. SkyVista stock fell 7.2% in after-hours trading at the gate, and the gathering as the aircraft taxied to the terminal. Passengers peered out the windows and gasped. Waiting at the gate wasn't just the usual crew of ground staff. There were dozens of people, security officers, airline executives, and reporters pressed against barriers. Flashbulbs were going off. TV crews had already arrived. Marissa, the junior attendant, peeked through the curtain and whispered to Clara, "They're everywhere." "I've never seen this before." Clara took a deep breath. "We'll stay calm. This isn't about us. It's about him." The moment the plane door opened, Theodore Marks, chief security officer, stepped in first. Behind him was a tall woman in a tailored white coat and sharp heels, SkyVista's chief legal officer, Alexandra Pierce. She walked straight up to Laura, who was trembling in her jump seat. "Laura Benton, as of this moment, your employment is suspended pending a full legal and federal investigation," she stated firmly. "Please come with us now." "I didn't mean," Laura started, but Alexandra cut her off. "This is no longer about what you meant. It's about what you did, and it's all on camera." Two security officers quietly escorted Laura off the plane as camera flashes outside the terminal ignited like a lightning storm that inside the lounge. A private Arlen, Clara, and Aiden were guided into a private executive lounge where Elliot Shaw was already waiting. When Aiden saw his father, he reached out and whispered, "Daddy." Elliot rushed over, kneeling, embracing him with a protective fierceness that only a father could deliver. "I'm here, buddy. You're safe now." Clara stood back, overwhelmed. "I'm sorry. I tried to stop her. I really." Elliot stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did exactly what you were supposed to. You stayed calm. You protected him. And you're part of our family." The press estimated minutes later. Elliot stood before cameras and delivered a statement that would be replayed millions of times. "Tonight, something happened that should never happen on any airline. A child was harmed by someone entrusted with his safety. Not just any child, my child. But this isn't about his last name. It's about accountability. No child, no passenger, deserves to be mistreated in the skies." He then paused, letting the silence hang. Effective immediately, SkyVista will implement new protocols. Mandatory empathy training for all frontline staff, anonymous in-flight passenger complaint tools, and independent incident review panels. Let me be clear, this airline doesn't just carry people. It carries trust. And tonight, we will rebuild that trust, one flight at a time. The crowd erupted in respectful applause that a viral SHFT online. Elliot's calm but powerful response was lauded. Memes, reaction videos, and commentaries flooded TikTok, YouTube, and X.1 video of Aiden hugging his father with the caption, "Strength isn't loud. It's steady." Received over 12 million views in 6 hours that a young woman tweeted. SkyVista's CEO didn't scream, didn't rant. He stood up, faced it, and fixed it. That's leadership. That's fatherhood. By morning, every major news outlet had the story. From CNN to BBC, even talk shows and late-night monologues had picked it up. The footage of Elliot Shaw embracing his son, his voice steely and precise, played on loop around the world. But with the light of day came deeper questions that backlash brews. Most people supported the CEO's swift response. A growing online faction started to twist the narrative. Some questioned the nanny's role. Others accused Elliot of leveraging his power too aggressively. Would this have mattered if it wasn't his kid? One viral post read, "Was a slap worth ending a woman's entire career?" Another chimed in less than 24 hours. Hashtag Team Laura began trending that a small clip of Laura crying while being escorted off the plane circulated. Suddenly, the same woman who had slapped a child was being reframed as a victim of corporate power. But what the world didn't know was about to come to light. A history unearthed journalist from SkyPost News began digging into Laura Benton's background. Within hours, they uncovered multiple internal complaints lodged by passengers and even crew members against her from as far back as 2019. Cold demeanor, unnecessarily aggressive tone with elderly passengers, scolded child for smiling too loudly. 3 complaints had been filed by passengers of color, 2 by passengers with disabilities. None had led to serious consequences until now. When the expose went live, it flipped the script again. This wasn't a one-time mistake, the article read. This was a pattern long ignored, until she slapped the wrong child. The hashtag Team Laura tag was overtaken by hashtag Justice for All Passengers inside the building at SkyVista HQ. A high-level meeting was called. PR, legal, HR, and brand management teams all sat at the table. "We've contained the damage so far," said one exec. "But we need to decide what this company stands for, because the next 24 hours will decide our next decade." Elliot Shaw entered the room quietly, holding a simple sheet of paper that IT was Laura's official employment record, including the complaints buried over the years. He set it on the table. "This isn't about my son anymore," he said. "It's about culture. Either we lead with accountability, or we lose trust forever." He looked around the table. "I want an apology. Not just to Aiden, but to every passenger she mistreated. And I want it to come from her, not our PR department." A public apology. Live that same afternoon, Laura Benton appeared at a press podium, flanked by her legal counsel. Her face was pale. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. "To Aiden Shaw, and to every passenger I've ever made uncomfortable, I'm sorry. There's no excuse for what I did. I let my stress, pride, and control override my humanity. And I regret it deeply." She paused, holding back tears. "This moment has humbled me, and I will accept the consequences, whatever they may be." The press was silent. For once, no shouting, no frenzy, just the weight of accountability. Back at HO later that evening, at the Shaw residence, Elliot sat with Aiden on his lap. They weren't watching the news, just building Legos. Peacefully, quietly. "Daddy," Aiden asked, "am I in trouble?" Elliot smiled, kissed his forehead. "No, buddy. You reminded a lot of people how important kindness is. That's never trouble." It had been 6 months since the incident that shook the aviation world. Since that day, SkyVista Airlines had undergone a transformation. They weren't just repairing a reputation, they were rewriting their legacy. From onboarding to in-flight service, everything had changed. Every flight attendant now went through empathy in action training, a course personally funded and developed by Elliot Shaw himself. Passengers noticed it, commented on it, and slowly, SkyVista's name began to rebuild its strength. Not from PR spin, but from visible, real changes. To Aiden returns to the ESCO. Aiden was now 5. Slightly taller, with a small scar still visible under his eye, remnants of that fateful flight. But today was different. He and Clara stood at Gate 7A, ready to board a short flight from San Francisco to Seattle. This time, it wasn't for business. It was for his cousin's birthday. As they walked down the jet bridge, a flight attendant greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome aboard, Captain Aiden," she said gently, bending down to his level. He grinned. "I remember you," she added softly to Clara. "You were on Flight 451, weren't you?" Clara nodded cautiously. The woman extended her hand. "My name is Dana, and I wasn't working that flight, but I've read everything, and I'm here to make sure this one is better." She leaned toward Aiden. "We even saved you a seat with extra window stickers." "Deal." His eyes lit up. "Deal." The unlikely reunion. As they settled in, another familiar face boarded. Laura Benton, not in uniform, but in jeans and a simple sweater. She walked nervously down the aisle with a small backpack in her hands. She had chosen to fly commercial for the first time since the incident. No media, no entourage, just a passenger. When she saw Aiden, she froze. Clara noticed her. Laura looked down, then slowly approached. "I'm not here to cause anything," she said quietly. I wanted to fly again, and maybe prove to myself that I can do it the right way, even if I'm just a passenger now." Clara looked her over. The sharpness was gone. What remained was remorse. She offered a simple nod. "Then sit and fly like everyone else." Laura smiled faintly, a tear glinting in her eye. "Thank you." She walked to the back of the plane and sat near the window. Alone, the SkyVista WY. As the plane ascended, the captain's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard SkyVista 122. As we climb to 35,000 feet, we remind you that every journey is a chance to be better. Thank you for flying with us, the airline that believes in second chances." Passengers clapped. In seat 1A, Aiden was too busy with his stickers to care. But somewhere behind him, a woman who once made the worst mistake of her life let out a long, steady breath. Above the clouds, everyone was equal, and the sky had never felt so clean.